This is Canada, home to 10 provinces and 3 territories. And each one of these provinces and/or territories has a provincial capital. And today we're going to talk about each one's provincial capital building. Now, you may have been watching our U.S. State Capitols Scored series. This is pretty much the same thing, but with Canadian Provincial Capital buildings. And I guess I can't just keep calling them Provincial Capital buildings because they have different names in Canada, namely Legislative buildings, Provincial House, Confederation buildings. You get the idea, so we're going to have a bit of fun and go through each one and give it a score. 10 being awesome, 5 being average, and 1 being the lowest possible score you can get. So each score is going to be ranked purely on the exterior of the building, not the inside, so keep that in mind. And even better, since there isn't 50 states, we can get them all done in one video. Hello, future me. We're actually getting it done in 2 videos. YouTube says 99.8% of people who watch our videos aren't subscribed, so let's change that, because that's awful. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below, hit the bell for notifications, and share our videos and channel to everyone you know. It's time for Canadian Provincial Capital Buildings Scored, and Territories too. Starting with A for Alberta, we have the Alberta Legislature building in Edmonton. This Beaux Arts building started construction in 1907 and wasn't finished until 1913. It was designed by American architect Alan Merrick Jeffers and Englishman Richard Blakey. Jeffers was the lead architect, and he followed many design cues that were popular at the time, especially popular motifs being used in American state capitals and courthouses across the United States, which at the time were completely normal for projecting power and permanence. As well, he incorporated Greek and Roman architectural influences. The building is a T-shaped floor plan with a large rotunda in the center. Windows and doors are decorated in arches, and then of course we have the massive columns in front. The overall cost for the building was $2 million. The building stands at a height of 187 feet or 57 meters. The building is along the banks of the North Saskatchewan River on legislature grounds that are nicely manicured. Today, the building is still used by the Legislative Assembly of Alberta as well as the Executive Council of Alberta. There are also free tours of the facility offered throughout the week. So how do we rate this building exactly? I'd say it's a little bit better than average. I'm not a huge fan of the color, but I do think that the dome is very nice and intricate. I like the stairs and the portico and the columns. I think the wings are a little plain. They could use some height change for some visual interestingness. Otherwise, I think this building is just a little above average. I will give it a 7 out of 10. We next head over to British Columbia on Vancouver Island to the city of Victoria to witness the grandeur of the British Columbia Parliament building. And this is definitely one of the most beautiful buildings in all of Canada. Today it is used by the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia and has a beautiful view overlooking Inner Harbor, right in downtown Victoria. Tourists who come right off the cruise ships have these beautiful buildings to see, including the Legislative building here and the Hotel Fairmont, kind of kitty corner to it. Absolutely beautiful. Needing a place to rule from, the British Columbia government held a competition for a design for their new parliamentary house. Francis Rattenbury, a new immigrant from England, won the competition. His design followed a neo-Baroque, almost Romanesque or Renaissance revival design, with very heavy masonry work throughout. Construction started in 1893 and ended in 1897. And while the building came in over budget, they wanted $500,000, but it came in just under $1 million, the building was a huge success, featuring rich white marble, a massive andesite facade, various sculptures, domes, statues, including a gold-covered statue of Captain George Vancouver at the top of the center dome. It's an absolutely gorgeous building. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. It's just such an impressive and beautiful building. The multiple domes all around and just the masonry work, it's truly beautiful. What's cool is that they offer free tours throughout the year. Well worth a visit if you've never done it before. Up next for Manitoba, we have the Manitoba Legislative Building in Winnipeg. The building is still used today by Manitoba's government, including the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba, as well as the Premier and Lieutenant Governor. The building stands at 242 feet tall from the bottom step to the very top of the dome. At the top of the dome, there's also a statue known as Golden Boy, even though it's made of bronze. Golden Boy is actually supposed to represent eternal youth and spirit of enterprise, and was actually modeled on the Roman god Mercury. He proudly carries a torch and wheat, and runs naked. Whoosh! Oh my. And it was designed by the same person who designed the entire Manitoba Legislative Building, Frank Worthington Simon, a German-born British architect citizen. Construction began in 1913, but continued setbacks kept delaying the building. They even had to move the construction site at least once. The building was finally completed in 1919 after they put Golden Boy on the very top of the dome, and was opened in 1920. By the time they were done, it went well over estimates, coming in at over $9.3 million. The local limestone they used to create this building is pretty unique because when you look at it, you'll actually see fossils in it. Lots of fossils. You can see mollusks, trilobites, snails. The largest fossil is actually 3 feet wide and 1 foot high. That's pretty stinking big. The legislative grounds are quite beautiful, with trees, grass, fountains, and lots of statues. Strangely, Egyptian statues like sphinxes and hieroglyphs praising the Egyptian sun god Ra? What? This building actually has a lot of mysterious things, and some of them aren't even understood today. I mean, black stars, Athena, Medusa, the lady with snake hair. Overall, it's a pretty nice building, but I actually think the grounds are nicer than the building itself. I think the portico is wonderful, and so is the dome, but the sides, the wings, leaves a lot to be desired. Very flat, just not much going on there. I'm real tempted to give it a 7, but I don't think it's as good as the Alberta Legislature building, so I'm going to have to give it a 6. It's a little above average because of the sculpture work around the dome, the ones around the portico, the Queen Victoria statue in the front, which protesters and vandals like to destroy, just the grounds in general, and I guess Golden Boy. If I was rating the inside, it would score more points because the inside's really cool, but we're only doing the outside. The New Brunswick Legislative Building, located in Fredericton, was built in somewhat of a hurry after their original legislative building burned down in the 1870s. They got St. John architect J.C. Dumarsk to create this building in kind of a Victorian style. After roughly 2 years of construction, the building was complete and opened in 1882. The building itself is located on the edge of downtown Fredericton, and it used to have a great view of the St. John River until the Beaverbrook Art Gallery opened up. Today it still houses the Legislative Assembly of New Brunswick. Now for scoring purposes, I think this is either going to be a building you like or you don't like. I mean, the building itself is pretty okay, I think. It sort of reminds me of a haunted mansion on a hill in a way, with the outer towers, if you will. The add-ons to the building are not that well done, and the grounds are almost non-existent. Mainly just someone goes out and mows the lawn, and it's very small. I don't know. This one, I'm not feeling it too much. I'm gonna have to give it a 5. It's an average score. Also, if they clean the roof, I think it would look a lot better. We come to the city of St. John's, to the Confederation building, which houses the government for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. This building was built to replace the old colonial building, which is where the government used to be, and construction started in 1959 and ended in 1960. The building is brick and slabbed in concrete. It stands at 210 feet tall, 64 meters high, and has 11 stories. It came in at a cost at just over $9 million. Now, being a building from the 1950s and 60s, I think it's actually a really nice looking building. It certainly doesn't have the design and intricate details of older classical buildings, but for what it is, I actually think it's a really nice looking building. I love its location on the hill overlooking the city. I love how it sort of builds up to a pinnacle where the tower is. I like the colors. I like the blue windows. I mean, overall, I think it's a really clean cut, nice looking building. I like how from the tower the building continually goes downward in height, sort of in a step form. It almost looks Art Deco in some areas. I also enjoy how they balance the roof line, if you will, in a different colored concrete from the rest. Now this might shock you, but I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I really do think it's a nice looking building. Just because it's newer doesn't mean it's bad. I don't know why, I feel like this is some sort of hot take or something, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe other people like this building too. The Northwest Territories Legislative Building is in Yellowknife. The building itself is sort of oddly located far away from everything. You actually have to go out of your way to get to it. It's away from downtown and everything, and it's sort of hidden in the forest. You don't really get these great views of it, but the building itself does have a nice view of Frame Lake. In fact, some of the best views that you can get of the building are just walking on a trail looking towards the building. You won't get much of a view of it if you park in front of it, which, again, there's not much parking. It's kind of just a shoulder on the side of the road. The building is only 2 stories tall and was designed by a Latvian-born American by the name Eva Matsuzaki and her architect firm. Construction either started in the late 80s or early 90s, and the building was complete in 1993. Just the logistics of getting all the materials to Yellowknife in the first place was a very hard thing to do. The building was also made to blend in with nature, to sort of flow with it. Now, much of the cool stuff about this building is located on the inside, such as its circular caucus chamber room, or how the Great Wall has floor-to-ceiling windows. That's pretty cool looking out in nature. Or the fact that they have a legislative mace. Now, from some pictures inside, it actually looks more like an airport interior, and certain angles from the outside make me think of like a flying saucer, a UFO. I can't say I'm a huge fan of this design, and it kind of pains me to say this, but I'm gonna have to give it a 4 out of 10. And I hate saying that. I know how much work and effort went into the design and creating and building this building. I know it has to meet certain codes for the cold weather up there, the harsh climate, but sorry, it's a 4 out of 10. Province House in Halifax, Nova Scotia is the longest serving legislative building in Canada. The provincial legislature has met there every year since 1819. So you're thinking it's an old building. You would be correct. They started construction in 1811 and finished in 1819. Over the years, downtown Halifax sprouted up around it, and now it has practically no room to expand. It's considered one of the smallest legislative buildings in all of North America. There's no real capitol grounds. There's a courtyard. The building is made of various types of stone and stands at 3 stories tall. The architect was John Merrick. So it might be small and compact, but I actually do enjoy the design. I think the front entrance is nice, having a hint of Venetian style in it, if you will, and the small courtyard is cute. The roofline also keeps things somewhat interesting. I will give it a 7 out of 10. Is that score too high? Probably yes. Okay, yes, it probably totally is. It's clean cut, and actually it kind of looks more like a city hall than anything. There we go, our first batch of provincial capital buildings in Canada's scored. I would love to hear your opinions on the same buildings we just covered, whether you liked them or not. In the next episode, we're going to score the rest of the legislative buildings in Canada, so stay tuned for that. But until then, if you enjoyed this content, and you must be because you're still watching, like, subscribe, and comment below. Please be sure to share this content with others. We also have a Patreon. So until the next episode, thanks for watching. I hope you have an excellent day. This was Canadian Provincial Capitols Scored, Episode 1.